small one is a problem as well. That's the kind of problem you should probably take care of. This is something that needs a more intense discussion. Okay, well, that'll get us into looking at these enterprise funds. And as we get into electric, the dark color you see across the top are revenues. This lighter color, pink color, is the operating expense, or I'm sorry, in this case, purchase power. You get distribution expenses in this darker color. And then if you had a excess for the year, it's in yellow, and a red is a loss. Okay, so you can see early here, we had some operating income. We were doing 60 to 30,000 a year in payment of low tax back to the general fund, so we had a fairly strong electric fund. Then we went 4 years where we either lost money or made very little, little excess, and we eliminated the payment of low tax until 2011, where things turned around. We made a $10,000 payment of low tax, and really in 2012 looked like we're back on a pretty good standing here, as we have a pretty sizable amount of income, and we're able to do a $50,000 payment of low tax on electric. So much healthier. It's growth in revenues, of course, as you can plainly see, that have offset the increase in purchase power costs. Electric board is doing a good job of getting that thing back in good shape. So that's the income statement for electric. So each one of these we're going to follow up with the balance sheet. This is how they did for the year, and the second one is where do we stand when we got done with it. Okay, so what we do here is this green is your cash. Now the blue on the top is cash that you borrowed to other funds. Okay, so it's kind of cash. Hopefully it will come back and be cash. And then the other one is bonds payable in the pink, and then the red is where you owe other funds. Okay, so these are both owing, and these are both, you know, cash or cash coming back. And you know, it's pretty plain to see that in 8, 9, and 10, what was a decent financial situation with cash and debt being in about the same range deteriorated to a lot more debt than cash. And then the last couple of years we're digging our way out, but we borrowed, I think we got $300,000 to one of the other funds, probably the sewer, I would guess. But so anyway, so in much better shape. In fact, great shape, had we not had to borrow it to another fund. So electric turnaround occurring, all good, other than, you know, we'd like to see that it get paid back. Okay?
So that's looking just about like a false.
Well, it wouldn't be if it was owed to us by, you know, a fund that could pay us back. I think this is sewer, and you can't just wait it out. The sewer will pay it back, but I'm afraid it could be 20 years. Now, if you forgive it, yeah, you're going to have more debt to help the sewer, if you forgive this. But, you know.
Yeah, we have to sit down and come up with a strategy for each one of these funds.
Right.
And that's, we need your advice as well as we sit down and try to figure out, maybe we forgive some of it, and the rest is, you know, we take care of the EDA fund or something else.
And the key would have some cash flows going forward, saying,
Right.
okay, how much is sewer going to be able to, how long will it take? Well, as I mentioned before, if they're going to have significant capital improvements in the future, you know, that's the really key here.
Right.
With all the money they spent, I wouldn't think so, but it's not my expertise. Okay, water. Again, we go through the revenues. The darker color here, we were just, we got our profitable years pre-flood, our loss years during the flood, interrupt operations and what have you. Increases in rates, as you can see in the last bullet here, has driven our revenues up, greatly exceeding our expenses now in generating income in water, generating that operating cash I pointed out earlier, and of course water doesn't have the big issue that sewer has. And when we look at here, I think I looked at 2008 at $250,000 revenues in your water fund. We're now at 500, so it doubled in 4 years of the revenues in the water fund. How much of that was interrupted service, I don't know. Okay, where does that leave the water fund? It's a good story. We go to the water fund, and those improvements in the waterfront, here's the debt that occurred. We mentioned before, there's $4.8 million worth of debt in your enterprise fund. Here's a chunk of it. Yeah, cash is growing. It's growing because we have to have a debt reserve in the water fund. Okay, so it had to actually borrow $100,000 of this from another fund to have that cash reserve. So it really has $200,000 of its own cash. Borrowed that other 100 to meet the debt reserve requirement. It is a positive. Cash is up. The due to other funds is down to 100, and debt is down. But again, as you can see, to play this out, even the water fund, it's going to take some time. Okay, we're on the right track. Things seem to be working, but it's probably corrected, is what it looks like to me. And we're on the right track. But, 1 year is probably not enough to say it's fixed, I guess. Okay? Sewer. What I did here is the same thing. You get your revenues. The little red on the top is a revenue coming from the village. Okay, the contract with the village. So just the city versus village is showing you the totals. Then the expenses are the same, but I changed the column here that's usually pink, and this light blue is depreciation. Okay, so it gives you a feel for, yeah, these years you showed a loss in this fund, but you actually generated cash, because this was depreciation, it was non-cash, so it's generating cash. Okay? And you can see now, this year we generated a lot more cash. That's what I was talking about before, when you wrote those numbers down, what it was last year, and it was way up this year, the operating cash. You can see that's where it's occurring. Your revenues are growing up, and you're holding steady, actually declining your actual cash expenditures. So, again, major increases in your losses here during this period of time, and having that somewhat corrected at this point. Somebody just looked at the sewer fund now and they said, hey, that's in pretty good shape. Until you flip to the next page and say, well, in good shape, but cash, and here's the debt. The debt, I do have not only the bonds payable, but the due to other funds that I mentioned before of $900,000, that's right here. So those two together, so again, you look at the amount of time that will take to correct that situation. That is one option you have, is to just leg it out, wait for it to take care of itself. It is possible, if you have limited capital improvements going forward, that it will happen. But
So on the bottom there, it says the funds will be received from Rushford Village Supply to Debt Service.
well, there's something, there's a new sewer agreement where there is a requirement that the
They're paying a percentage of the debt service of that plant rehabilitation bond.
How well?
14% or whatever,
16%.
there's a percentage that they're paying.
That starts in October.
They've been
This
paying
year.
it, but they started paying last year.
Last year.
So that's in that red thing at the top. So I guess what this is pointing out is, yeah, it's a lot of debt, but remember, there is a commitment by another municipality to assist with it.
This one too has a much bigger reserve fund to it because of the different kinds of bonds and debts that we have.
But again, if you didn't have to have the reserve, this would be zero. You don't really have cash in the sewer fund. We put it in there to meet the reserve requirement. So if you didn't have this would be smaller, and then the borrowing would be smaller.
So flipping back to the next page, what is that yellow? The figure right there.
That is operating
Net
net income before transfers. So there's income. You see, there's more revenue than expenses. So they're actually showing income for the first time. Have not in the past. Even on an accrual basis, after depreciation. You see, after depreciation losses every year, break even on those. Okay.